In this class, we are going to understand about classes and objects. First of all, we are going to understand what is an object. An object is a real world entity that has a state and what behavior. So object is one that exists physically. Okay. For example, if you take book, pen, watch, okay, building, exactly a car, motorcycle, all this comes under what objects, and each object have what state and what behavior. So what do you mean by state? What is mean by behavior of object? So state represents the data of the object and behavior represents the functionality of an object. For example, let us consider some objects here like pencil, apple, book, bag, board. All this comes under the objects. Okay, and if you take, for example, if you take this book, okay, this book we will take. So if you take book as an example, we can define its state and behavior as follows. Okay, so what does it represents? Let's say that the state of that particular book is, let's say, title of the book, example Easy Java, and author of that book, that's nothing but Vanam Mallikarjun, that's my name, and number of pages the book contains is what 400 pages, and genre is what programming, and publisher is what Apex Computers, and price is what 500. So this particular thing is nothing but data of the object. Okay, data of the object, and this data is called as state. Okay, so whatever the object contain values, that particular values or data is called as what state. Okay, so similarly, let's say now we understand what are the behaviors of the book. Okay, the book behavior contain such as opening the book, closing the book, reading a page, turn to the next page, bookmark a page, and get book details. These comes under the actions that we perform on the book. These actions are called as what behaviors. Okay, so any object have what state and behavior. Okay, for example, if you take apple, what is the state of this particular apple fruit? That is color. Okay, that is nothing but taste. Okay, and weight and cost. These four comes under what state of this particular apple. Okay, what is the behavior of this particular or functionality of the apple is what peeling the apple, cutting, okay, or slicing the apple, and eating. These comes under what behaviors of what apple. Similarly, the pencil, bag, and board. Okay, so these two examples are enough. So this is what in general the object is all about. Okay, so and object is a real entity that generally we use. We always work with, or always we use what objects. Now what is a class then? Okay, what is a class? So in general, a class is a blueprint or template or design or structure of an object. Okay, I can simply say that a class is a blueprint or template or design of an object. So before the object is created, that object should be what designed, and that designing is called as what class, what we call as. Okay, and what does this class is going to describe? Class describes all the state and behavior of the object. Okay, so let us say example, a class defines what something an object should be like. So how the object should be, what are the state and behavior that the object should contain, all that particular thing we are going to design inside the class. Okay, so we can say that a class describes the state and behavior of an object. Okay, so a class is a blueprint. I can say a class is a blueprint or what design. Therefore a class is a logical entity because it does not exist physically. Okay, let's say I can give you example on this particular class and object now. Okay, suppose you want to construct one building. Okay, you want to construct a building. Okay, let's say that you want to construct a building. So what you do is you go to the engineer. The engineer will give the planning. Okay, plan. Okay, plan, or what we call as design, or what we call as blueprint. Okay, blueprint, the blueprint of building. Okay, of building. So like this he is going to give some designing he is going to give regarding this particular building. Okay, so this is what we call it as what a class. This is what we call as a class. Okay, and by taking this particular blueprint or design, we will construct any number of buildings. Any number of buildings you can construct, and Okay, the really you can construct by taking some material like iron, steel, okay, bricks, like that. Taking that material, we can construct the buildings with the help of this particular class or design, and therefore these are called as objects. These are called as what? Objects. So objects are created to the class only. Without class, object cannot be created. Okay, so this is what. So what's a class? A class is a design or blueprint of what? Objects. Okay, so what is an object? An object is a implementation of what? Class. So when you implement this class, you will get what? Objects. So objects are created to the classes. Okay, without classes, objects cannot be created. So this is what we have understood. What do you mean by a class and what do you mean by an object? Okay, that is what in general terminologies we understood what is a class and what do you mean by an object. But when we come to the Java, in Java, what is a class and what do you mean by an object? So what is a class in Java? Okay, the definition is a class is a combination of instance variables and what? Methods. Actually, we have already discussed that what does a class contains? What does a class contains? A class describes the state and what? Behavior of an object. That is what the state is nothing but instance variables, and behaviors is nothing but what? Methods here. Okay, so therefore a class is a combination of instance variable, state, and what? Methods, that is nothing but behavior. This is a simple definition. Okay, then a class is a blueprint or template for creating the objects. In order to create the objects, we need one design of the object. The design of the object is called as what? A class. Okay, right. Now what is a class in Java? So a class is a user defined data type. Okay, what are user defined data type? The data types that are created by the programmer are called as user defined data types. Therefore a creation of a class is nothing but you are creating your own data type. Okay, and to this particular data type you create what? Objects. Okay, you create objects to this particular user defined data type, and each object have same state and what? Behavior that is defined inside the class. Okay, right. Therefore now how to create syntax to create a class. Okay, so we have to give access, class keyword, and class name. Open the flower base. Then the first thing is the class should contain state. Second thing, it should contain what? Behaviors. Okay, state is nothing but creation of variables. So access type means data type. Here you have to give the instance variable 1 and you have to give the value 1, which is optional. Okay, similarly instance variable 2 and value 2. Okay, this is also optional. Like this you create all the instance variables over here, nothing but you are designing the state of the object. Okay, then what is behavior? Behavior means the methods that we are going to write which actually performs the operations or actions. Now this also contains access, return type of the method, method name, and have some parameters, list, and open the flower base, close the flower base, and here you write down code of the method or the action that you want to perform. Like this a class contains the instance variables, nothing but state, and what? The methods, nothing but what? Behavior. Only these two type of things that are present inside the class. Any number of instance variables it can contain, and it can contain any number of behaviors. Okay, then we have to understand what do you mean by this access. See, anything that is put in the square bracket, that is optional. You may use or you may not use while creating the class. Okay, so this is also what? Optional. You may use or you may not use. Okay, so what is this access modifiers? What is this particular access? The full form is access modifiers, we call them as. Okay, what is access modifier? Okay, access modifiers specify the accessibility of members. Okay, what do you mean by accessibility? Means how this particular instance variables and methods available in the program. That is what we call, that is specified by what? Access modifiers. These are generally four. One is private, public, protected, and default or no modifier access. Okay, so there are four access modifiers are present: private, public, protected, and what? Default access modifiers. Okay, so let us say that now the class contains two types of members. Understand? Instance variables and what? Methods. So combinedly these two things we can call them as what? Members of the class. Okay, instance variables and methods. Now let us say that. So what about this particular private, public, protected and default? Okay, so if you take private members, let me explain this particular access modifiers. Okay, so let us take one class. I am taking a class here. This is a class present, and this class is name is A. Assume this is what? Open the flower base, close the flower base, and I create one private variable. Let's say private integer. Suppose A is equal to 10. I am giving this private variable. Okay, should be accessed anywhere inside the class. So inside the class, anywhere you can use that particular A variable, like SOP A. Yes, it is right. Okay, but this variable A variable you cannot access outside the class, even using the object also. So after creating the object also, okay, I create an object of A class. Suppose ob.a I am accessing. Okay, let's say that SOP, I write ob.a. This is wrong. So what happens is the private members of the class we cannot access outside the class. Okay, this is what private. So private member should be used. Private member should be accessed only inside the class, but we cannot be accessed outside the class. But when we come to the public, okay, if you take public variable integer b is equal to 20, okay, then protected variable, okay, protected variable integer c is equal to 30, and this is what? Default access modifier, that is 40. So as no access specifier is given, therefore it comes under what? Default access modifier. If no access modifier is written, then called as what? Default access modifier. Okay, now, okay, default access modifier, right? So now what happens is this particular public, protected, and this is default access variables you can access inside the class, as well as you can access outside the class also. You can use it. Okay, like SOP, I can print ob dot let's say that b, similarly ob dot c, similarly ob dot d. Everything is allowed, therefore this is right. Okay, so what is the difference between private access modifier and public, protected and default? Private members of the class, it may be instance variables, it may be methods, it should be accessed only inside the class, but they cannot be accessed outside the class. Whereas public, protected and default access modifier members can be accessed inside the class, and they can be accessed outside the class. But outside the class they should be accessed using object name. They should be accessed. Okay, so this is what the difference between private and public, protected and default. Okay, but what is the difference between public, protected and default, sir? Means this difference we are going to understand after completion of what? Inheritance, and at the end of the packages concept. So till that time we are going to postpone that difference. Okay, up to now you understand this particular only. Okay, right. Then up to now we have discussed about a class. Then what is an object in Java? Okay, the definition is an object is an instance, a result of class. Okay, so what is the definition? An object is an instance. Instance is nothing but memory allocation of class. If you allocate memory of a class, then that memory is considered as what? Object. Okay, so an object is the memory allocation of class. So when you allocate the memory of a class, and that memory is considered as what? Object. Okay, and each object contains all the state and behavior of the class. Suppose if you create 5 objects to a class, and each object contains same state and what? Same behavior. Okay, so syntax of creating the object. How to create an object? So you have to write class name, object name is equal to new keyword. We have to use new keyword, already we discussed. Okay, new keyword allocates a memory at a runtime. So class name, object name is equal to new of class name. So the new keyword allocates this class memory to this particular object. Okay, so either you can write in the same single line, or you can write in 2 lines like this, like class object name is equal to new of class name. So in both ways you can write. Okay, so what's the main use of the new keyword? New keyword allocates memory of the class at a runtime, and that memory is called as an object. Okay, fine. Now accessing the members outside the class using object name, already we discussed, right? If you want to access the public protected and default members outside the class, then how to access it? The syntax that I am giving: object name dot instance variable, object name dot method name, and you have to pass arguments. This is what actually I have explained here. So this is using the object name, we have to access this particular variable or a method outside the class. Okay, so let me give you a clear example how we can write the class. So if you observe here the program here it is. So this is class example1.java. I'm creating a class. So class, the class name is what? Sample. Open the flower base here, close the flower base. In this I'm writing only the state. I'm not writing the behavior, please. Only state, that is the instance variables. See, I'm creating a private variable A and a public variable B and protected variable C and a D variable. As I'm not writing here access modifier, then it will consider as what? Default access modifier variable. Okay, so like this, A is stored with 10, B 20, C 30 and D 40. Only state I have written. Now I try to access this particular variables outside the class. See, I'm writing a main class here. There's a class 1 in which contains a main. So this is an independent class and this is the actual main class. Okay, the class that contains main. Okay, now this class, to this class I create an object. What's the class name is? This is the sample. So remember please, this sample is nothing but user defined data type. Okay, what's the class? This is what? Okay, so sample is user defined data type. Okay, data type. So remember please, this is what you have to understand. So to this sample data type I am creating an object like class name, object name is equal to new of, okay, the class name sample, and open the parenthesis and close the parenthesis. Okay, so what happens at this particular statement? Let me show you here on the board. Okay, so let us take here please. Okay, let me change the color and I'll explain here, and this screen also I'll try to increase, right? So let us understand what is happening with this particular thing, right? Good. So what happens at this point? Okay, at this point what generally happen? Okay, let me also go to the view, and the view I go to the web layout. Okay, better, fine. So that I'll get more scope for this particular board. That is what I am doing here. All these things, right? Okay, fine. Now let me come to the program also, right? This is the program. Okay, so what happens here? It is now sample ob is equal new of what? Sample. What happens here? An object is created. Let's say that one ob is an object created. So this is what? The reference variable. So what is this ob? This ob is called as what? Reference variable. Okay, reference variable of object. Reference variable of object. Okay, right. And to this ob, the new allocates the memory of sample class. Okay, what is sample class contains? A variable, B variable, C variable and D variable. Like this it is going to create some memory. Now this is what the memory that will be created. Okay, and what does this memory contains? This memory contains A variable, B variable, okay, C variable and D variable. Like these variables it contains. Okay, so what does the sample class contains? A, B, C, D. Therefore 4 variables will be created, and which have some addresses also. The addresses are 101 to 104 memory allocation, 105 to 108. Each variable is 4 bytes because the A, B, C, D are what? Integer variables, and integer size is 4 bytes. So this is 109 to 112, and this is 113 to what? 116. This is what the memory created. So what is this is what we called as an object. This is what actually an object. Okay, so therefore what is the starting address of this particular object? Means the first variable starting address is the address of the object, that is 101, assume. Okay, and that particular 101 address is assigned to ob. So therefore ob is stored with 101, which is pointing to this object. Okay, so this is what? This particular thing is an object. This is an object which is nothing but memory allocation of, okay, memory allocation of, okay, memory allocation of class, okay, class sample. Let's say that sample. So like this, what is happening here? It is let me keep aside this one. Okay, so this is what the new operator allocate this sample class memory, this particular sample class memory, which is an object assigned to what? OB. This is how the objects are created in the memory. Is it okay? Right? Now see, this A is stored with what? 10, B is stored with 20, C is stored with 30, and D is stored with what? 40, because we have given the values for A, B, C, D. Okay. Now system.out.println ob dot suppose let's say here first of all we are going to understand, please. Okay, so if you understand here, see, system.out.println ob.a is equal to ob.a. So what is ob.a? ob.a we are printing, but this is error. Why? Private variable cannot access outside the class. So a is a private variable we cannot access outside the class, therefore it is giving an error. Whereas we are printing here system.out.println ob.b, ob.c, ob.d. You can see that these variable values it is going to print, like ob.b is 20, ob.c is 30, ob.d is what? 40. It is going to print on the monitor. Okay. So this is a simple example that I have given on what? Classes. So let us copy paste this program and we'll run in Eclipse. Okay. So this is a program. Let me say that Control V, and here also I change here main PRG. Let's say that you need not to change, please. Just I'm changing. Okay. So therefore I run the program. When I run the program, you can see that you got the output this particular 20, 30, and 40. Okay. What if I am going to what if I am going to uncomment this particular statement? When I uncomment, immediately you are getting an error like what? ob.a is error. So I move the mouse pointer over here and the red line, and you see that the field sample.a is not visible. Okay, sample.a is not visible means sample class contained A. This A is not visible here because outside the class the private variables are not visible, means not accessible. Okay, so therefore private we cannot access outside the class, therefore I put a comment now. Is it okay? But when I run this program, now you'll get the output. It's fine, right? So next okay, so what's the output that we are getting? So this output, let me copy here. So let me copy the output. Okay, Control V. Okay, let me decrease the size of this particular thing. Okay, right, fine. Then